Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am Vitold and here is the updated Ducati Multistrada V2 in the V2S variant. I tested for you the previous V2 in 2023, while for 2025 and on, there is a new version of it. I'll tell you why this bike could have been the best in the class, but it fails in a few areas. This is also the last bike that I needed to update before creating my full mid-size adventure motorcycles comparison like I've done with the big adventure bikes. You can watch that video using the link in the description. So why would Ducati touch the V2 in the first place? Well, they not only wanted, but rather needed to, as Euro 5 emission standards killed the previous engine basically. The new one is smaller, but fear not, as not all is lost here. There were also some outdated solutions in the previous bike, like a terrible display with an onboard computer which now is fixed, and it's done quite well. So I'm going to tell you everything great, good, bad and horrible about this bike in this video. I've written all up-to-date adventure motorcycles available on my market, so I know what's possible and what's not. I can already tell you that if not for some specific stupid mistakes that Ducati have done with this bike, this really, and I mean really, could be the best bike in the segment in my opinion. It doesn't mean that it may still not be actually the absolute best for you, and you. Don't you worry. In case you wanted to buy this new Multistrada V2, there's still a chance if you want to be having the best bike out there. Let's start off with approaching the bike. It looks very similarly to the previous generation and even previous to the previous, so Multistrada 950, and also looks similarly to the larger, more powerful and heavier Multistrada V4. Last time I told you guys that the V2 may be a better bike for some of you, better than the V4, and I usually wouldn't do that, but Ducati seems to be the only manufacturer in which its lineup I consider a smaller bike to be actually even more fun and more enjoyable than the bigger, more powerful one. For me, fun matters a lot in motorcycles. The excitement, the positive experiences are the key for me. Just so that you know what type of rider I am and keep that in mind. It's a pretty compact bike, this one, once you sit on it, and this is an enjoyable thing for me. Also, for the record, this is a V2S trim, and that added letter S means that there are certain differences and upgrades compared to the basic model that mean that you actually have to go for the S. One main upgrade, in my opinion, is fully electrically adjustable suspension, both in the front and rear, which is the only such option in the entire segment of midsize adventure motorcycles, and boy, oh boy, this is a huge thing to mention. As for electrically adjustable, you can see me on an electrically adjustable office chair. Everything here is moving electrically. Check these out at powerseats.eu. Anyway, the variant without the S of the Multistrada V2 is there, but well, no one buys it, and you also should not buy it. I mentioned also because some data I will be providing you is already for the V2S, like wet weight, which is around 220 kilograms. Ducati only gives you official data for the dry weight, but I like it with fuel and other fluids included, which should be around 220. So with fuel, with oil, with coolant, with brake fluid. The thing is that you totally don't feel its weight, and it's a significant observation that I'm very, very impressed with. It really feels very light, both when moving around on your feet and also when riding, which is a big point, obviously. Now sit on it, and it's 83 to 85 centimeter seat height. Reach the ground, which I could touch with my both feet easily, and you will notice that it not only feels, but it also looks compact when sitting on it. The dashboard is quite close to you. The windscreen area isn't huge around there, the fairing, and this encourages you to play with the bike even more than you might initially expect. In the knee area, it's very slim, and it's super easy to support yourself with your legs once you stop at the traffic lights, for example, which might be an issue in some bikes, like let's say Yamaha Tenere 700, which has foot pegs in a strange location in the way of your legs and feet going down. Here in the Multistrada, it's perfect, so they're not in the way of your feet going down to the ground. Once you put your feet on the foot pegs, the knee angle is surprisingly good to me, and it's very, very comfortable. I'm 1 meter 83 centimeters tall, or 6 feet tall, and I feel very good on this Multistrada V2 in this regard. So your lower body is happy. Upper body is fine, but the handlebar is wide and it's moved a bit too much forward for my liking. This gives an impression of sportiness, yes, and it enhances such feelings, but it makes the bike harder to maneuver at low speeds, for example, when you want to make a U-turn. I would move the handlebar closer to myself and higher also for a more comfortable posture. That's what I do prefer. Better for touring, better for control. Now, by default, you might need to lean forward a bit right now. If you've got super long arms, maybe you don't have to do that, but I still do. So it's not perfect. The seat, on the other hand, is very good and I wouldn't really notice it, which means that it's not too hard and uncomfortable, but it also isn't a cloud-like sofa. It is fine and I wouldn't feel the need to do anything with it. Still, you may play with its height as it's adjustable, which is nice. It's also nice that you've got windshield height adjustment, which is, in my opinion, the best execution out of all bikes in the segment. You just grab this lever here and position the shield where you want it and it locks itself in place. It is brilliant. I love it. What I don't, and I actually hate, as it's horrible, is the windshield itself with that bloody stupid cutout in the middle, just like in Triumph adventure bikes, which is causing wind and all the road debris flying around with it to shoot into my helmet from the bottom. Wind protection, well, it is horrible. It is super loud there with lots of turbulences, and this is a significant issue no matter the position that the windshield is in. It was so close, well, or maybe it's enhanced by especially windy weather now, not sure, but I recommend that you just throw this junk away and get yourself a proper taller aftermarket windshield with no cutouts. The deflectors on the sides are fine though. So right now it's a terrible experience, but you can make it excellent, I believe, with that height adjustment system. Now let's move to the engine and performance of this new Multistrada V2, as the brand gave this bike a smaller engine. Interesting. It used to be a 937 cubic centimeter V2 with 90 degrees between the cylinders, which is cool, 113 horsepower and 94 newton-meters of torque. And now it's down to 890 cubic centimeters, but with more power at 115, so 2 more, but also 2 less newton-meters at 92. Let's say we're getting pretty much the same. The previous engine was terrible at lowest RPM, with pretty much useless flexibility, but this one is slightly, I think, better there. It might be shaking less and producing less drama if you find yourself trying to accelerate from some lower RPM, but it's still not great, as until you reach around 6,000 RPM, not that much is going on except for shaking and slow acceleration, but it's still not as bad. Then there is a sudden power bump around 6,000 RPM, and then steady and for some reason not very explosive amounts of power are available. But somehow it doesn't get so much more exciting the closer you get to the red line. I was explained that this characteristic might be there on purpose, but I don't like it, as it feels like initially the engine works like a regular petrol engine, so the higher the RPM, the quicker it gets, but go past 6,000 RPM, for a moment it's cool, and then it becomes a diesel engine, which is accelerating and slowly climbing the RPM scale with no progression. So it's not like the higher you go after the 6,000 RPM, the more explosive and the quicker it gets. At least that's my impression. It's weird and it's unexpected. Since this bike is having riding modes, I'm talking about the most powerful map of Sport, which delivers full power. Yes, that's important. Well, it's not a slow bike, but I feel that there are at least 2 bikes in this segment that give an impression of being more explosive, at least. I'll leave mentioning them for the full comparison of all of these motorcycles. Multistrada doesn't feel underpowered and does okay overall, delivering you some excitement of riding, but it's easy to have the throttle open at all times for me. On the other hand, it's a mid-sized bike, so, well, not the most powerful model in the lineup, so we cannot expect performance of an over 1 liter bike. However, it's close to 1 liter. Well, one more thing I noticed is that when setting off, especially when trying to do that fast and immediately opening the throttle quite a lot, there is a moment of weird hesitation. I suspect traction control is cutting power, but for some reason it does so even before delivering that full power and letting the rear wheel slip. It's not cool, as it doesn't seem like it's necessary at all, but rather gives an impression of being out of control of the bike, and I don't like that it feels like it's doing it its thing. The clutch works fine. Heat management at around 10 degrees Celsius is fine until you have to stop for longer at traffic lights, and then you see the temperature raise on the dashboard and also around you. I wonder what it's like at 30 degrees, but I cannot know that now. I feel it shouldn't be terrible, but the bike may be getting a bit hot overall. That's just my expectation right now. So performance is generally there, but I believe that some different mapping should happen, as the mentioned issues could be easily fixed, in my opinion, even right now, with some software update. Not much vibration on the handlebar and foot pegs, that's all good. Not easily fixed is another thing, which is the transmission that works well, okay, and it is rather precise when you're using clutch. But once you switch to a quick shifter, it's really not enjoyable to use, since lots and lots of force is needed to make the gear lever even move. It's very harsh working that I do not like. It almost feels like something is broken in the bike and it's getting stuck. Well, Ducati, this is to be definitely revisited. What doesn't need fixing is handling. And my man, this thing really surprised me. It feels so light on its feet. Reach 10 to 20 kilometers per hour and all the weight disappears. It's super nimble then and really causes no difficulties at all speeds right from the start, which is unusual in this segment. And mind you, the front rim is 19 inches while the rear one is 17 inches, so the front wheel is of rather standard size and it's not a small 17-inch rim. The bike is flickable, so you may easily and very quickly start turning it with pretty much no resistance from the bike. Reach higher speeds, it's the same. Nothing changes and the bike immediately does what you want it to do. The only weak spot I feel are the Pirelli Scorpion trail tires, which here you may very easily make reach their limits both in the front and rear. Unfortunately, the front tires slid at least once in my case, and I wouldn't feel as eager to eat up corners so aggressively anymore afterwards, which is a pity. Still, the temperatures aren't too high right now, around 10 degrees, so still, I would get different tires if possible, I feel. Now at high speeds, once you're in a lean, use any of the brakes, front or rear, and the bike will keep its line perfectly. At throttle, the same. It goes as you've told it before. It is extremely neutral. It's great in terms of being balanced, and it always follows your command. It's easily one of the best in the segment in terms of handling. I'm very happy to say that that's really something that's making a bike very enjoyable to use. Until you experience that, you will not know what joy means. Riding between stationary cars is also fine in terms of low speed control. Still, very good balance. Only when it comes to super slow actions like U-turns, you may get out of balance because of the freaking front brake working in a bomb mode. Not sure if I can say that word actually. Anyway, you just start to touch the brake and the bike wants to make a stoppie while the front suspension dives immediately. It doesn't dive much, but obviously it compresses, so having this happen puts you out of balance as a moving thing on the bike, and that complicates things. The front brake is terrible in terms of initial bite. At high speeds it's fine and it's cool as it immediately delivers so much power, but it easily competes with BMW brakes. Just at low speeds, especially when you're coming to a stop, it is terribly sensitive. It's overall actually a bad score from me, as it's hard to dose despite being very, very powerful. The rear brake is fine and its lever is located lower than a foot peg. Good job, so you may actually use it in this Multistrada. Unlike in some other motorcycles on the market today, which have it leveled, and if you're sitting with your knees forward and not your knees backward, well, you have to lift your whole leg to use the brake lever, which is ridiculous. Still, here, very good job, Ducati. Now, this rear brake is calibrated fine, maybe useful. ABS could perhaps work a tiny bit better and engage a little later, but it's no big deal, so it's still quite good. So there is potential in the brakes, and they could be close to getting a fantastic score if the front brake wouldn't be so wild right in the beginning. Now it makes using it quite stressful and it gets in the way at lower speeds where precision of operation does matter. So we already have some great some terrible and some bad. Time for good, and this would be the suspension. Guys, this is the only bike in the segment of mid-size adventure bikes that comes with fully electrically adjustable suspension in the front and rear. I mean, wow. The previous V2 also has it, by the way. Now, once you change your riding mode, the setup of the suspension may also change. Well, by default, it does change. There is comfort suspension setting, dynamic and off-road. Suspension travel in the front and rear is 17 centimeters, so not that much, and likely here we might see even more comfort if there was more to work with, but there isn't. The difference between comfort and dynamic is clear. In comfort, the bike is smooth and nicely deals with bumps and potholes, only needing really large ones for you to feel discomfort once it rides over them. It feels cushiony, while when switching to dynamic, it feels more solid, it feels more springy, and you will feel larger bumps a lot more. Too much for my liking, but I've got to say that on a flat and smooth road with nice corners, I'd be happy to switch to dynamic. Still, it's impressive that you may easily change all that with a few clicks and not having to get off the bike. Also, you may change the suspension setup regardless of a riding mode, as there is a dedicated switch to quickly changing that on its own. It's independent, it's great. And also you may even dig deeper into changing what comfort mode actually does and what the dynamic mode does. So you can tweak that even further. So it's not like you're stuck in 2 or 3 modes and that's all you can change. There is more. You can go even further, which is wow. Which is really, really good. I'm just having fun here in this area, and also regarding riding modes, that despite having 2 dedicated buttons for these functions, just pressing these buttons doesn't lead to changing anything, but it only makes the menu pop up on the screen, and you've got to actually change and then accept the change using other switches, arrows, and then accept circle. This is not perfect, but you don't use that so often that it could be considered a problem, I would say. Just saying that I like separate buttons, but it could be done better. So suspension is really competent, it allows for large changes, and it can be very comfortable and quite sporty. Multistrada in the comfort mode is also one of the most comfortable motorcycles in this segment, I feel. I would say still top 3, along with Ducati Desert X and Triumph Tiger 900 GT. So yeah, at this point, I may tell you 3 things. First is that this new Multistrada V2 is exciting to me and it feels nimble and happy to ride. Second is that its technology is impressive, especially considering suspension and, well, windshield adjustment. This makes me feel that I'm on a mature and complete bike. And the third thing is that somehow at lower speeds I would feel just a little bit uncertain for reasons that are not fully clear to me. I would define them likely as a mix of 3 other things: oversensitive front brake, wide handlebar, maybe too wide, which is moved too far forward, causing me to slightly lean forward. And there's something there with the combination of clutch and throttle that would give me a hint of a lack of full control. I'm not sure, but all this makes me feel sort of separated from the bike, and as if I was writing a prompt for AI, and then it would steer the bike instead of me having the direct impact and me having very direct feel of the bike. I'm not sure, but once speeds raise, it mostly goes away, and then it's brilliant. So perhaps it's just not perfect for city and low speed riding due to this sort of interesting feeling. It's funny that it's so hard to define. Now, some single areas are so good on their own with a few screw-ups that I feel that with just a bit of tweaking, it could actually become almost perfect. I'm impressed overall, is what I'm saying. What is also great is the exhaust sound that's really brutal. It sounds so good that I think some people might think, I was thinking immediately that it's having an aftermarket exhaust installed to this bike. But no, the deep V2 rumble is there with its mighty expression. It sounds better than most, even larger bikes, which is really, really cool. How does this work considering the European Union standards of how loud farts may be? I have no idea, but it's awesome here in the V2. So good job, Ducati. Not great, but rather questionable are the switches that feel somehow flimsy. Some are too small, some have a strange click, and sometimes they seem not to be responding, as you can't be sure how strongly you press them and if you have pressed one or not. Now, navigating through the menus is so much better compared to the pre-facelifted version. Now everything looks like it should, despite the screen being quite small and located a bit too low, in my opinion, to be easy to see, but well, whatever. It's an improvement, let's stick to that. And there are quite nice graphics, by the way. It's clean and intuitive to use. It's a plus. Just keep it in auto or light mode, as in black. Once sun is shining, you may not be able to see much on it. The rear rack is made out of some plasticky something that's bending once you grab and pull it, for example, when putting the bike on a center stand. Well, come on. Are we done with aluminum already? Why? Thankfully, those pretty mirrors more than make up for that, because you see their bars pretty much all the time and they give a very positive and solid impression. That's nice. Fuel tank capacity is 19 liters. Nice. Again, there is chain drive, which is a standard thing in this segment, maybe not that nice. We do have a front LED light, we do have heated grips that may be there. There is cruise control already, 5 riding modes that you may pretty much fully customize to have them the way you want them, and an option of getting tire pressure monitoring system, which is good. Well, I think it should be there as standard always, but whatever. Of course, electrically adjustable suspension is the top option in this segment, and only Ducati can have it. Triumph Tiger 900 GT comes with rear suspension, electrically adjustable. Here we've got it also in the front. In Ducati, it's better. The only thing missing in terms of technology that, for example, BMW F900 GS has is keyless ignition. Can't have it here in Multistrada V2. Overall, I'm impressed, and big things like handling, like suspension, like position, seat, sound, and mostly the engine still are done very well. Some smaller, like an issue with brakes, because, well, gaining speed is important, slowing down not so much, right? like wind protection, quick shifter, and that weird inconsistency of connection between, well, how to say it, between you and the engine at a set of and lower speeds. These things may not be key, and they could be improved in the future. Some stuff like a handlebar, windshield itself, and tires we may fix ourselves. And I would give this bike an 8 out of 10 on Vitol's recommendation board, and it could be one of the top bikes in the segment, in my eyes. But is it? Well, I'll analyze all the data, I'll get back with a huge comparison, but some things definitely need fixing here for me to be able to confidently recommend it to everyone. I feel it could be a good fun bike to ride wherever, both in the city and outside. This unique thing here is that it would be one of very few complete fun bikes that may at the same time be super comfortable, because that usually doesn't go together. This is where it beats, for example, BMW F900 GS. And I'll make a direct head-to-head comparison in more detail of these as well, but first stay tuned for the all mid-size adventure motorcycles comparison video that is coming. Now, let me know what you guys think about this new Multistrada V2. See you!